Welcome to Big Cube Sunday morning. It is a full screen this morning, and it's going to be a good one. Before I let myself vanish from the scene and turn it over to Karen and Tom and their new best friends or old best friends, the I popped a picture of my puppy, blessed be the name of puppy, at work. That my wife is in the hospital. So most of y'all out there that follow me know that. And but she's not in the hospital hooked up to 12,000 machines, and she can get up and do the things that she needs to do. Uh, which for those of you who've been in the hospital means, whoops, what the heck's that? That we're there. Something's funky here, guys.
Let's
Am I
see.
showing up on the BQ Press page?
Yes, I'm looking at it on Facebook on another machine, and everything looks fine.
Oh, okay. It's the Facebook.
We're live.
There's no program ever been designed that doesn't say, okay, by our measure, everybody using it is very comfortable with using it. Okay, let's change our system. The Microsoft effect. But there we go. So she's there. And well, the thing is, I'm not seeing comments, and that's what worried me right off the bat.
Well, now there's a comment from Andrew.
Oh, there. He's saying morning. It's good. It's always good to let the gamers on board. The so anyway, I posted that out there, not meaning to alarm anybody, but apparently some folks were worried. And thank you for your concern, because believe it or not, Susie sits out in the living room. I'm hard of hearing, and I have the volume turned up, so she listens from the living room to the podcast without watching, and will occasionally, when we're done, give me some feedback. So bottom line is this: she's fine. Puppy and I are going to go down to see her as soon as we get done. They tell me that she will be likely out Monday, and if not, then we're just keeping our hopes. Okay, so
Thank you,
now,
Bob.
thank you. That said, the reminder that since I am very much engaged in being with my wife when I'm not here where I have to be, I am not doing a lot of editing in the last couple of 3 days, but I do have your stories up being read, and I'm taking my laptop with me down to the hospital today so that I can actually do work, since I know it's going to be a much more relaxed atmosphere down there than past. So, Tom, Karen, you need to introduce us to some folks. Tell us what you're going to be doing while I vanish.
Tom, why don't you start off?
All right. We today have two guests. I pronounced Giles's name Gilles because that's just the way I learned it. And Paul, and they are experts on anime, manga, and things like that. We're going to be talking a lot about how anime and manga look at what the future is going to be like, both through directly looking at the future and looking at the past, looking at isekai, which are people moving to another world, looking at how the Japanese and Chinese, because an awful lot of anime is coming from China these days, and Korea, and Koreans, how they approach the world slightly different from Americans, and what they've seen and what they're seeing. And it's going to be, I think, a useful conversation. I'm going to let each of them introduce who they are and what they think they're doing. And we may toss in a few extra notes. I've known Gilles for decades now, and Paul somewhat shorter time. So Gilles, would you like to go first?
Actually,
Okay.
Tom, you should also add that the four of us sometimes go to Tokyo together.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're talking about another trip.
we travel together, and you'll hear a little bit about Gilles' approach to travel, and as we do
And ours.
the show.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Gilles, why don't you start? Tell us what you're up to.
Okay, I'll kind of go in with what Tom had said. I met him in 1977 at the Other Change of Hobbit bookstore. And I was still a student. I would wander by the bookstore fairly regularly. And after I graduated, I was working just north of campus, so I would wander by the bookstore fairly regularly. So we have kept in touch for quite a few years now. I met Karen through Tom. And I'm a retired librarian. I have my master's degree in library science from UC Berkeley. In 1990, a friend of mine called me up at work, my friend Steven, who also travels with us sometimes, and said, there's a Japanese animation club at Berkeley, and they're meeting tonight. I immediately responded with, where do you want to meet for dinner? And that was Cal Animage Alpha, the very first college anime club in America, still operating since 1989. I discovered it in the second year. And that kind of led me down the entire rabbit hole of anime, manga, Japanese popular entertainment, of which I only was peripherally involved before then. And now it's, as you can see, from all of the manga and books about Japan, and I have a lot more in other parts of the room and in the other room, and a wall of videos. Yeah, it had an impact.
Well, you even wrote a book about Tokyo and several books about anime.
Right. Yeah, the book is Tokyo Stroll, which is basically 22 neighborhoods to wander in at random and what's there. It's not designed to be a conventional guidebook, so a lot of the big sites in Tokyo are not in the book.
So, Paul, tell us a little bit about your trip to here.
Well, I have a checkered past. BA in chemistry, a year in seminary, master's degree in wastewater engineering, and was awarded a PhD in environmental toxicology based upon 20 years of work in the field. So I kind of dance between science and technical and engineering issues and societal issues. And about 2000, maybe 1990, I ran into a TV show that said there's this crazy cartoon stuff going on in Japan, and they have these shows and they put a clip of Princess Mononoke on the TV, and I looked at it. I says, I've never seen such high quality animation being done, and this is something I need to look into. I had been raised on science fiction, attended science fiction conventions on and off over the decades, and I said, this is interesting stuff. So I started watching anime and reading manga, and I said, these are stories that aren't the classic science fiction coming of age stories. These are not Western Judeo-Christian background stories. These are interesting. Where are they coming from? What's driving these? And my cat's keeping an eye on me in the background. And that got me interested in anime and manga. So for the last 26 years, I've been studying it as time has allowed, and published a couple of articles on isekai and one on garbage collectors in outer space, a great manga series called Planets, highly recommended. And And that resulted in me being aware of Giles' publications. And so I had a chance to meet him at a conference. And when I found out he regularly went to Tokyo, I said, next time you go, let me know. I'd like to tag along. And that's how I met Tom and Kara.
Okay. So we could talk for a moment about Planets, which is a fascinating near future anime about garbage collection in space. One of the things that has been talked a lot about anime is that as compared to American writings, it's much more about collaboration and people working together. That individuals are important, but they are less competent than groups. And so the whole individualism thing that makes a lot of American fiction and American television and all that gets treated very differently. And I think that the ways in which people collaborate are useful to talk about. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Planet East is a great example because it's a crew that collects space debris. You know, some of it they drop into the atmosphere because it's small enough to burn up. Some of it they haul back. And they work for a corporation. They're underfunded. It's a small office. There's bickering within the office, but they work together. They work together quite well. And so that's a great example of, you know, individual and group dynamics. There's a lot more in that series. I highly recommend people take a look at it. It's, I think, still available on disc.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's available on Crunchyroll. I could be wrong on that, but I think that it was one of the things that they added, one of the older series that they added in. If not, it's definitely worth checking out. The paper I wrote on it had the title "To Boldly Not Go Where No Woman Has Gone Before," and it was an analysis of the 5 female leads in 5 female characters, one of which was the co-lead, and how they are treated inside of the system, and how to make how the authors of Planets, in order to make the life in outer space, doing something as bizarre as collecting trash and living on a space station, how to make that understandable to the general viewer, was that they adopted the corporate culture. And the corporate culture doesn't treat women in Japan very well. And so we had characters who were trying and failing because the corporate culture beat them down. You had other ones who had made peace by only working in a very narrow field and not challenging the male dominant system. You had other ones who were there strictly to find the best quality husband, where quality was defined in terms of the most money and the most political power, and come from the right families. And that was the real purpose. You know, that was their real career, was to achieve the best possible matrimony. And then you have this kind of every girl who is the co-lead, and we follow her through life. And after doing truly heroic and miraculous things, she winds up living with her mother, raising her husband's child while he goes on a space trip to Jupiter. Hence the title of the series, you know, to not go where no woman had gone before. It really was a tour de force about how women's roles are deflected and minimized inside of a Japanese corporate culture.
That's not an optimistic view of the future.
I'm sorry, but actually what's best about it is that it's not intended to be talking about the future. It's an intention to bring in the past and the current to make a really strange situation understandable to the general reader. Mm-hmm. And if you read the manga, it's not in the manga. They put it in the anime. The manga has the women far more dynamic. They have them leading a rebellion. And so reading the two of them together is really an interesting cross comparison of how two different media take the same story, and one of them adapts it to conventional views of women, and the other one is far more radical.
Mm-hmm.
That is fascinating. That had not occurred to me. Right now, there's a lot of American stuff being projected on the latest version of Star Trek because people are looking at youth and what is going on at Star Trek Academy. And it's really getting a lot of reaction around women's roles, and which is a very Star Trek is still a very progressive theme, and that's annoying a lot of people right now.
One of the other things that often shows up in anime that I keep noticing is redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, you look at something like Dragon Ball, where anybody who's a villain has a very high probability of turning into one of the heroes later. You know, people who are being treated as evil, some of them remain evil, but most of them turn out to be merely misunderstood. And that seems to be less true in stuff from this country. And so that's actually a very positive attempt to view the future.
Is
Yeah.
Dragon Ball futuristic, or is it really more just fantastical?
It's more just fantastical.
Yeah,
But-
very much more.
Yeah.
And a lot of what Tom is talking about is in the Dragon Ball Z arc, which takes place 5 years after the original series. But yeah, it's definitely there. Redemption is also a big thing in not only is the person recognized as having good qualities, they develop good qualities.
Mhm.
They develop personal relationships. They basically start abandoning aspects of their old self and working, in a different manner, different dynamic with the other people in the story. And that's very much the case in Dragon Ball. Vegeta is one example of that in Dragon Ball Z.
Who starts out as definitely a villain, but then becomes an irascible and difficult, and he never loses the difficulty. In fact, he's really irritable, but he becomes somebody who actually saves people as opposed to attempting to destroy them.
Speaking of destroying people, I'd like to get us into talking about AI and the Japanese view of AI. Specifically, there is a film called Summer Wars. And by the way, I am the most outsider of all of the people in the anime discussion. I like it. I don't know it the way everyone else and this show does. Tom and I watched the film Summer Wars, and it is something I think that everyone in our audience can really relate to. It's about a family in Japan and a little boy, a young boy who comes to visit them under very amusing circumstances. And the boy and his other friends are very involved in an AI world, and very frightening things are going on in the AI world. And what's going on there is juxtaposed against this very wholesome, well-off, upper middle class Japanese family. One of the relatives is playing baseball and grandma is there. And what's going on in the AI world is getting increasingly frightening, and I believe looks as though it's going to seep over into general society. So take it from there and tell us what this is saying about AI in our future.
Yeah, the Japanese view on AI, if you go into including robots like Astro Boy and androids and so forth, tends to be much more positive than the Western view. The Western view sees it as a threat. The Japanese view sees it as something that exists, which may or may not be threatening. And Summer Wars, you got this thing that's basically taking over social media, because the world that Karen mentioned is this massive international social media project. And it does bleed over because it starts affecting traffic systems, water delivery systems, the alerts to the fire department. All sorts of things are getting affected in this story. And, it's one of those cases where, yeah, this thing is threatening, and getting back to people working together. They work together to fight it. And yeah, Summer Wars is an incredible movie. I really, really enjoy it. And it's probably time I pulled the disc off the shelf again. But then you get into things like Armitage the Third, which deals with androids. You, of course, have Astro Boy, which deals with robots. And what happens when robots get so advanced that they can start demanding civil rights. And that was part of the whole thing when Tezuka was writing Astro Boy in the 50s and 60s. The whole civil rights issue was not only in the news from the US, but also in Japan with Korean minorities and other groups. And he had that very much in line when he was putting together those stories. So AI kind of like has this and that. AI also shows up in the first Ghost in the Shell movie, and then based on the Ghost in the Shell manga, which has the same thing. Yeah, what happens when you lose control of it? Mm-hmm. That's when it becomes threatening in Japanese context.
And that's even more true in Standalone Complex.
Yes.
Which is an offshoot of that series.
Well, I have a question. How does Japanese anime, how is anime dealing with these threats? Is there a happy ending? Do the robots take over? I mean, what happens?
More often they don't take over, but what you get is them moving into a collaboration space with humans rather than a competition space. That they remain autonomous and people are still wary about them, but they start living together in the way people do. You know, looking at it as dealing with prejudice and trying to make people more or less, you know, the people who are of the who are being othered be less. You know, they start out being less and they move into being equal.
So there's a wonderful series. It's kind of hard to find. I think it is on Crunchyroll as well. It's called Day of Eve. And it was one of the early works by the artist who went on to create Paternal Inverted, the movie. Went on to do several movies, anime movies later. But in it, a cafe is created where it's in a society where there are androids, and androids are marked by glowing rings that appear around their heads. But in the cafe, it's vanished. And the policy of the cafe is that you will treat androids and humans the same way. And in fact, you can't tell the difference between them. And it's a 6-episode series. And you go through and learn the stories of the regulars of the cafe and why this loving couple turns out they're both androids trying to learn from each other how to better love their human partners. An android grandfather pretending to be human so that his granddaughter has a chance to learn how to relate to humans before he tells her what's going on. So story after story like that is about the issues related to it, the issues related to how do you live in a world where you have these objects then you're in the world that look human, behave human, feel human. How do you establish relationships to them? But they're not human. They and they have their differences. So I think there's a number of the Day of Eve again is a great, lovely series to look at. But there's only one of a number of anime series that wrestle with this issue of how do you live with a robot or an android, going all the way back, as Giles alluded to, the original series that started anime in itself is the Astro Boy.
There's an interesting parallel to that, which is sort of the flip side of that. I think it's Apocalypse Hotel.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Delightful series.
You know, there are no humans in that anime. There are things that look human, but it's you know, basically the Earth has been destroyed, and a hotel was founded that keeps running on artificial beings, and things are breaking down, and aliens show up and they treat them as if they are human guests. And it's a fascinating series. You know, it's some just beautiful
Yes.
stuff in it.
I
Yeah,
always
'cause
thought,
humanity has gone out into space as part of the story also. Humanity's still around. They're just not in
None
the
on Earth.
hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
I would,
should mention to our viewers that people have been referring to Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll is a channel, for streaming, where you can get anime. Most animes are there, and you can. It used to be you could watch it free with ads, but it's also a small subscription fee. And Crunchyroll, I think, is really outstanding. It's where I started watching anime, a really good streaming channel.
Cheryl Alexander comments that it sounds like a way to deal with racism and mixed marriages without saying it out loud. And yes, absolutely.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Also, there's another connection to older Japanese tradition, the animistic tradition, that everything has a spirit. And then there's a tradition that the older an object is, and if it's well cared for, it develops a stronger spirit. And in yokai lore, after a century, can actually become physically animated. And they're great satirical illustrations of household objects that have been mistreated, beating up their owner.
I love it.
Yeah, a lot of
Yes,
those
I
were
mean-
printed in the 19th century.
And then there's Tanari no Yokai, in which one of the characters is an automobile. One of the yokai is an automobile that's been taken over by the spirit of its former owner.
My Mother the Car.
Yeah, very much.
Very much so.
1960s sitcom. There's a strain in anime, or there's a trope in anime of the robots carrying on after the humans are gone, and Apocalypse Hotel is one of them. There's others that of course I can't think of at the moment, but there's where it's commonly done, and I always thought that was inspired by Ray Bradbury's short story.
There Will Come Soft Rains.
There Will Come Soft Rains. Yes.
Yeah, quite could be, because a huge amount of American science fiction has been translated into Japanese. They are significant consumers of international literature in all forms.
Yes.
And not all of it's stuff that's well known in this country.
Yes. Yeah,
Antiquarian
true.
Bookstore Biblia, which is a wonderful live action series, moves around in one episode a Robert F. Young short story collection.
Mhm.
I'd be surprised if all the people listening to this had even heard of Robert Young.
One of the things that and I've lost the train of thought entirely. It's one of the problems with age. Go on.
I want to jump into talking about psychopaths and the idea of, we're starting to see it a little bit in this country, and they're already doing it in China extensively. The idea that individuals have a social credit rating, and your credit rating determines what you're allowed to do. In psychopaths, people are rated based on, I guess, their mental health.
Yes.
I talk a little bit about, I don't know the origin of I assume it began as a manga and then became an anime.
Yeah, I'm not sure. A lot of things nowadays begin as prose literature and then become anime, or start as anime and become prose literature and manga. But Psychopaths is interesting. It's a utopian story. Utopias are not necessarily good places to be, because utopias, if you look at the history of utopian literature, it's controlled by a group of elites. It's not a democratic government. And in psychopaths, that's the case. Here you have this wonderful society. Everything's working. People have decent jobs. They have good education. They have their place in the society. But everything's determined by this massive supercomputer. And then there's a system that monitors people. And if a person's emotional state reaches a certain level, the authorities are called in. And if it reaches a certain level beyond that, they can be outed. They can be just terminated. And the main characters in the story are the police, and some of whom are wrestling with this whole issue. And
some of whom are good and some of whom are bad.
And some of whom are just doing their job.
Yeah.
And if your emotional state reaches a certain level, you could be institutionalized. Some of the people who have been institutionalized are released on a type of probation to work with the police.
Because people sometimes have to be able to be violent. And
yes,
the main thing they're tracking is whether you are likely to be violent or not.
Right.
Wow.
In that case, it's like the Phil Dix short story, whose name has gone out of my head, which was turned into a really terrible movie with people being predicted to become murderous.
Minority Report.
Minority Report. Yes.
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 Yeah. The Philip K. Dick's an interesting one too, because the story that was made into Total Recall.
I can remember.
I would love to
tell you wholesale.
Yeah, I would love to find out when that was translated into Japanese. I know when the first case of it in a book anthology came out, but I haven't been able to track down when it was first translated, because it was likely a magazine first. Because Space Adventure Cobra begins with this bored office worker who's got some days off, but doesn't have enough money to really go on a vacation, going for a special type of immersive VR vacation in which he experiences being this great space pirate and having all these adventures. And then when he comes out, he's describing it to the woman at the office, at the agency, and she says, "We don't have that in the story. That's not what I programmed for you." And then people start coming after him.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
But, did the creator read about Dick's story, or was it translated into English? That's something I'm very curious about.
So it's my understanding that after World War II, the GIs during the occupation of Japan brought over science fiction paperbacks, which had just really started to become an item in the 50s, a popular way of disseminating story collections and novels. It got them out of the magazines and into their own publications, and that wave came in and was extremely popular. And the intelligentsia of Japan were attracted to it because you could say things about culture if you put the culture 2,000 years in the future that you weren't allowed to say under the occupation if you actually tried to describe what was happening in Japan of the time. And so
in the US, you could do the same thing and you would not be allowed to say.
Particularly around the McCarthy era.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Particularly regarding gender relations.
Yes.
Last night I was rereading Fahrenheit 451. And the thing that struck me the most about it, we all know the story about the firemen who are burning houses full of books. But what struck me most about it was the seashells. The fireman's wife is completely blissed out in this pablum of social media that prevents her from having real social relationships. She's online, but the way she's online is by using earbuds. She literally has what we now have as earbuds, and they're streaming this bilge into her ears all day. And I thought, wow, that's the part that's really come true.
Yes. And I
think that until a few years ago when we all had got these earbuds, this was not as noticed about the book, but it was the thing that leaped out at me the most, that was the way people were controlled by this very bland social media. It was like she had Fox News in her ears all day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not unusual. I mean, a decade too late, I finally sat down and watched Wall-E, Pixar's robot series, and the way they describe humanity being swept off in this arc is they lie on couches and only view video in front of them, some type of Facebook type experience, and they're slowly dissolving away, having no real purpose in life, and becoming less and less aware of the world around them. And Wall-E is the act of redemption that triggers their returning to the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cross-fertilization between Japanese and non-Japanese media with anime goes back a long time. The first color animated feature in Japan was based on a Chinese legend, and that's the film that inspired Miyazaki to become an animator. It's something about the White Serpent. It was released in the U.S. as the name of Panda something or other in a redub in theaters. But the cross-fertilization in manga goes back to the 19th century with the influence of 4-panel newspaper strips, many of which were just translated into Japanese and run in Japanese newspapers. So the ideas have been flowing into Japan from all over the world. European cinema, American cinema. Tezuka was heavily influenced by Fleischer, by Disney. Mm-hmm. He did a Metropolis story. All he knew were a couple of pictures from the movie in a magazine and a short description. And from that, he created the story. And then nowadays, we have more of the Japanese stuff flowing the other way. For a long time. Yeah, go ahead.
No, in a lot of ways, there was a period in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, where Japan stood for the future in America. I'm thinking of films like Black Rain, where you wanted to see something futuristic, you brought in Tokyo. And mm-hmm. in visiting Japan, I mean, I do get that feeling of the future a lot, just as I look at the cities and how smoothly the cities run. There's a very futuristic feeling about we can have all of this stuff and it will work. Whereas in the United States, you have all this stuff and it sort of isn't working. It's covered with graffiti and it's a mess.
Yes. And in the United States, you've got a lot of NIMBYism that prevents things from being done. People who are opposing mass transit, people opposing, enough housing, for everybody and stuff. In Japan, it's almost impossible to block a construction of an apartment building. You have to go through major efforts to do that. And the odds are the local government is going to tell you, are you an idiot? Mm-hmm. The laws are very, very good on the property owner side, which has kept a lot of businesses going during COVID, because a lot of small family-run businesses over the years had torn down their shop, built a new building with apartments above, and then put the shop back in. And so when COVID hits, they still had a revenue stream. Mm-hmm. So I've been like 100-year-old stores, family business. You got mom and pop, and the son in the kitchen in the back working on stuff. You got all these glass cases out front. You got the young wife, baby strapped on her back, organizing things, and they survived COVID. Whereas in the U.S., it could have been a whole different beast for them. Businesses that were dependent upon commuters coming in to shop, like a lot of the places in Akihabara and so forth, and Ikebukuro, either had to downsize or completely shut down. And it didn't stop with the end of COVID. It took a couple of years because they just couldn't get back on their feet. And part of that is the transportation networks, the fact that housing is relatively inexpensive in Japan because you can't block apartment buildings. So you get that future going there.
Interesting. Wow. I hadn't
Yeah.
thought about that because when we go to Japan, we stay in a neighborhood called Asakusa, which has a lot of old traditional stuff. And I was freaking out because the last time we were there, I was seeing the apartment buildings going up in the middle of the old stuff. But I gathered that's not considered to be a problem.
Yeah. And a lot of that is actually being done for the tourist trade in Asakusa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And one of the fascinating things about watching the buildings go up is they go up very quickly and they go up very quietly.
Mm-hmm.
They put a
it's very
curtain
different
around
from
the
here.
building and it just grows behind the curtain. And each day we'd come back to our hotel and there'd be a lot more building there, but you weren't aware of it. There was a building going up next to the Ryokan where Gilles stays. And we went over there one day and they had workers on the street whose job was to escort pedestrians safely around the building zone. It was amazing.
In fact, there are two buildings. There's one right next door and one across the street. And the one across the street, when we got there in the last trip, it was dirt. A few days later, they had the foundations in. Then they had the first story. All these steel. We're talking earthquake country. We're talking in an area that is silt. This is the lowlands near the river. So they had to dig down for a good foundation. And every day they would add another story by adding pre-made steel beams that they simply needed to connect together. Relatively little noise.
Yeah, it was sort of magical. And being in Tokyo and watching this modern stuff go on, it's almost like watching a film because it's done so smoothly. And
we walk a few blocks. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, you go.
Yeah, and you walk a few blocks away, and you're at a temple that was founded 1,000 years ago. Or in the case of Asakusa, you got Sensoji, which is this gorgeous, huge, gigantic temple, which originally was small, 7th century. And then right next to it is a Shinto shrine. The temple is post-war because it was burned down during the fire bombings. The Shinto shrine is 18th century and still survived. But, and then you go a few blocks another way and it's very modern. Another thing is noise. You go into a big commercial district and you can have massive sensory overload. Take a side street for 2 blocks and you can listen to the birds chirping.
So what we've got is a Japanese style in which the future and the past coexist right next to each other. Whereas in the United States, when we have the future, it's like raise the whole neighborhood and put in these buildings.
Yeah.
You don't. What? So that's something that takeaway really is essential for me in understanding the difference between the two cultures.
There's also very much the difference that commercial and residential are much less separated.
Yes.
In various parts of Tokyo. Trying to treat Tokyo as if it's one thing is a real error.
The interesting thing is the view of the way cities are planned. In the US, we had the curse of urban renewal in the 50s and 60s, where entire neighborhoods were leveled and rebuilt. In Japan, they rebuilt after the war, and then they rebuild here and there. Individual lots, individual owners, or in some cases, the land is owned by one person, it's leased to one family, and then the family builds the building and owns the building. And that might go on for generations between landowner and building owner. It's not an unusual thing in Japan. It's common nowadays for it to be a single owner, but having both at the same time is not unusual. Mizuki, the famous manga artist, owned his house, but not the property. He paid rent on the land.
Wow.
That's an interesting bit of collaboration, which is,
yeah.
Part of why collaboration is so important in terms of the Japanese culture. And
I think that a lot of Americans listen to that and all they can think is lawsuit. Because because landlord and tenant stuff.
Yeah, and in Japan, it's a very different beast. There was a case recently of a non-Japanese investor who bought an apartment building and raised the rents, and it made the national news. He put the rents back down because he realized he was being perceived as so negative for having done this. And another thing regarding science fiction, you watch science fiction and you will see ultra modern and old in close vicinity, just like you do in real cities in Japan. Asakusa is a great case because Asakusa is a poor neighborhood, and the poor neighborhoods have not had massive construction. They still have a lot of old buildings. That's how you can get a view on the socioeconomic status of the neighborhood. The area right near Asakusa, if you just go north and east, is Sanja, the biggest slum in Tokyo. You would walk through it as an American and say, oh, this is a lower middle class neighborhood with an occasional drunk in the door with a bottle. That's about it. But there's so much about the way present day Japan is put into the science fiction, just like present day everything is put into American science fiction. Good American science fiction often is taking present day problems and putting them into the future. They do the same thing in anime and manga.
What do you think is the anime or manga that most gives us a feeling for politically how the world may be in the next 40, 50 years?
Perhaps Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah, it's Ghost in the Shell because it's a post-World War story. Limited nuclear war. Very few nuclear weapons were used. Now, if you watch the story, you have to look carefully and you'll see little clues about how the rest of because it's set in Japan, how the rest of the world is different. America is not called America. It's called Imperial Americana. And in the worldview that Shiro created, and this is included in the extra notes in his Appleseed ID volume. He's got a great map of the Northern Hemisphere. And for the United States, Imperial Americana is basically the old Confederate States that have become a right-wing government. And in fact, in Appleseed, slavery, apparently, the ownership of people can happen because there's a police raid in France in which they're raiding a place that has a member of the Imperial Americana government, and he's got his property in the basement. Yeah, but and the rest of the United States has joined Canada. There's just clues here and there. But in the standalone complex series, Imperial Americana comes in with the CIA and some other things coming in. So that shows up in there.
Gilles, you've referred to various series in the Ghost in the Shell. How do people access these stories you're talking about? Are they DVDs? Are they Crunchy? What's the story?
Well, basically, I don't know which ones are streaming. So one would have to do a Google search to see, search Ghost in the Shell streaming, you'll find out which ones are streaming. Standalone Complex is a good one to jump into. The manga, of course, is still available. It's coming out now in a big, juicy hardcover. And the movies, or the original Ghost in the Shell movies, are still available. Another release. So that's a good place to begin. Standalone Complex, though, is quite good because it's an interesting series.
So
And it's
Ghost in the
also
Shell is a universe, and these various
base,
stories exist within it.
basically, yeah, it involves a particular police unit called Section 9. They're high up in the Japanese hierarchy. They involve national security issues and cybercrime. And so you get into politics in that and factions and things also. So, and then, so there, like I say, there are several different stories and series regarding that. And the main character, of course, is referred to generally as the Major. She is the head of operations for the group. They have a commander, but she handles the field operations.
So this is a future where a woman is in charge of military operations.
And well, in this
Crunchyroll at the
particular case,
moment, Crunchyroll at the moment has Ghost in the Shell Arise as the only part on it.
yeah, which is not the best Ghost in the Shell series,
Yeah.
but it's still interesting because that's like a prequel to the
So-
founding of Section 9.
When you have Ghost in the Shell, are there like one or two artists, creators who are responsible for this, or are these collaborative projects with different groups working on
The
it?
original manga is Masamune Shirow. The first animated work was the movie directed by Mamoru Oshii, who called Shiro and said, "Is there anything you would like me not to do with your story?" And Shiro said, "I love your work. Do whatever you want."
Wow.
Yeah. And then with the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, Oshii was involved in that. That's Production IG, is the animation studio. Shiro was also involved in some of the script writing, apparently. I'd have to look on the Anime News Network has a wonderful encyclopedia which gives you all the credits for the different shows. And Arise is a more recent one. After Standalone Complex, the shows have tended, in my opinion, and the opinion of many fans of the show, to be somewhat weaker. My opinion of Arise is not as low as many other people's opinions. I just simply look at it as a different one.
So Paul, what are we missing? What other Japanese anime future stuff should we be looking at?
So we've been talking about the near future. If you talk about how does the long-term future, what's the future of humanity? There's an interesting genre of cozy catastrophes that exist in anime. And one of the best ones, let's see, is this one, Yokohama Kaidishi Kiku, where we follow the story of an android who is running a coffee shop on a little peninsula just south of the Tokyo Bay. And Yokohama Kaidishi Kiku, I think, is roughly translated as Yokohama shopping log. And the series starts off with her driving her motorcycle up to Yokohama to buy coffee beans for her shop. And it's very gentle and healing. But as you watch, or as you read the 144 chapters of the 6 volumes of the manga, you find out that humanity is in the process of dying, and that the dying happened in a big step where there was a huge catastrophe and a lot of people died or vanished, and then the birth rate just stopped being anywhere near replacement rate. And so as the generations go by, the number of people who are left just keep shrinking. And as the story, we follow the android for a period of about 30 years, where you watch this gentle slowing down of life around her. It is on one level an expression that says that the end, that since all things are ephemeral, and since nothing is permanent in the universe, the ending of humanity does not have to be a crisis, but in fact can be something that is celebrated as the concluding chapter of a finite thing that existed in the world. And if you're in a universe where it cyclically repeats itself, that's just fine, because there will come a day when there is a new race that takes its place and moves forward into the future. That vision of a gentle ending shows up in 3 or 4 other end of the world anime. And it kind of blends into Apocalypse Hotel, where the robots there are carrying on humanity's tradition. And there's a hope that one day humanity will come back from outer space and will take up again their role as being the customers for the hotel. And that theme is a really, you just don't see that in Western
No,
work.
I was trying to imagine somebody pitching that in Hollywood and the incredulous expressions they would get. Well, now everything just kind of slowly ends. But I think that we're culturally we're very much in a stage of trying to battle the bad things that are happening and believing that humanity will go on and trying to figure out whether it's Elon Musk deciding he and his family are going to live on Mars and live forever, or people here deciding they're going to get rid of Elon Musk and improve things on Earth. But the idea of accepting it, that was, when I heard you talk about it, I was shocked.
We're getting fairly close to the end of our time.
Ending things, we need to start winding things up.
Well, quite frankly, I could just keep going.
We could all keep going for hours on this.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you guys know I can never shut up.
Well, I want to urge our audience towards Crunchyroll.
It's a good entry.
Yeah, it's a good entry, and Tom and I'd say 80% of the streaming media we consume is anime now. We just find particularly, actually, I want to jump in and talk about Frieren. Frieren is a fantasy.
Oh, yes.
And yet it's it's getting wide acclaim. And I love it that I meet young people and they love it. Frieren is about the future in the sense it's about aging. It's about an elf who is going to live 1,000 years or so, who discovers midway through her life that she has not appreciated the friends and things that she's had who have died because they're human and stuff like that.
Ephemeral.
And it's about her. She's going on with her life, but she has a chance to do things over with a new group of friends. So in a sense, it's about the future. If you could do it over, how would you do it? And I think that it's a very powerful series.
Yes.
And also has the way that Japanese serious stuff has hilarious comedy in it as well.
Yes. One of the fascinating things in it, too, is that it treats magic like technology, in that what was completely revolutionary at one point and completely unbeatable 50 years later is just the commonplace and is easy to deal with. And a demon comes back that had this great spell that killed everything, and it's now the standard attack magic, and it isn't anymore anything that people are worried about because they've developed counters to it.
I think the whole idea of magic and technology becoming conflated is really important, because when I talk with people in their 20s and 30s right now who have come up playing Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, and who work in technology, their view of business and work and developing even the theme of a short story is in terms of how you do a raid in D&D. Who has what powers? And I'm seeing that it is a seamless conflation for them. They do not even realize they're doing it. When they talk about stuff, they will talk about what its rating is and what its power is and how you array things and where you need to collaborate. And it's a mindset that I think is kind of wonderful.
And it really brings up the collaboration thing that we talked about back at the beginning, and the importance of knowing what your role is in the group working together. And a lot of people talk about that in terms of work, but it's not the way most people really experience work these days.
It's not the way that our corporate structures in the US have encouraged people to experience work. And organizations that are using that model, young startups tend to do really well. And then they fall apart when they become larger and get
Yes.
this big top down structure.
Yes. I've seen that happen in many cases, ranging from small businesses to divisions of EPA that started off as rogue programs and then got domesticated within a decade and turned into just another branch of EPA.
Yeah. By the way, for the person who wants to pet my cat, this is Tinkerbell, and she's 19 years old.
I'll have to come over someday and pet your cat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we have 5 of them now.
We have
so-
5 of them.
Yes. Well, I plan to pet all of them.
Yes.
So, Tom, you want to wind us up?
Well, let's ask Gilles and Paul if they have anything they would like to say before we go wandering off.
Sorry, Paul, I took up too much of the conversation. I should
Oh.
let you speak more.
I had a chance to talk at the beginning. The one thing that I didn't get a chance to go into is isekai, and isekai fits very nicely into this situation because it is the experience of so many people of a certain age playing Dungeons and Dragons and then Japanese RPG programs who became familiar with Western fantasy, a la Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and all the earlier stuff that was based that in turn they drew from, like Conan the Barbarian,
Lord Dunsany.
yes, and all that got put together and packaged, and then Isekai said, well, what happens if you could somehow go into your game and be part of this world with all this rich pseudo-European social structure and physical structure and town design and knights and dragons and Western monsters, ogres and kobolds and goblins, but no yokai. How you could take this esoteric world and draw from the rich complexity of it to create these great, interesting stories. And I think the last time I checked, about 13% of all new anime are isekai. It has really just become a huge portion of it.
Yeah.
And then it drifts back over because we now have our romantic fantasies of things like lattes and romantic fantasy stories that are set into that are borrowing from isekai and bringing back into modern fantasy, these kind of gentle fantasy stories that happen in these worlds.
A lot of fantasy restaurants.
Yes,
showing up in that. And what's fascinating is that some of them do it by putting people into a computer, and some of it doing by moving people through gods to another world when they die. The truck running over the protagonist is the standard truck-kun.
Yes.
But that comes out of Slings and Arrows, which starts with a truck running over a protagonist.
Yes, it did.
Yes. The cross-fertilization.
Yes.
And
a ham truck, to be precise.
Yeah, often doing references to stuff from Europe and America as a sign of respect,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I see that it's my time. I would like to make note, completely unrelated, that my favorite series where a character enters the game after getting run over by a truck is now been reviewed by the one down in Oakland.
Locust?
Locust?
You mean Locust? It's been reviewed by Locus Magazine. No.
Locus, yeah. And that is it's been a rough week and my brain ain't working. But it was about the guy who gets plugged into a computer and sent off as a von Neumann probe, and brilliant set of books. And the mere fact that I've read them all about 5 times and I can't remember the author or the name says I got no business in front of the camera.
But put it up on the B Cubed Press site when you remember, so we'll all find out.
Yes, you have us curious now.
Yeah, well, it is the Bobaverse series. Don't you people all look at me that way, or I will suddenly think less of you if you have not at least seen the Bobaverse series. They finally reviewed them after they've been out for years. And
it exists.
I've heard of it.
Wow.
We are Legion. We are Bob. No wonder you like it.
No, actually, they make very few Bob jokes. What they do, though, is make the reality that you start off with that concept, no man's an island, and the Bob robot or the Bob program can replicate, but they find out as they replicate there are differences. It's not cloning, and so you wind up with watching the evolution of Bob as he goes from the obvious, well, I'm going to name my next clone Raker, to then they get in Bloom County and good stuff. It's just a series that I can tell you, I don't know anybody who's read it who's been disappointed.
I found a page full of quotes from it, one of which is, just when you start to get ahead in the rat race, the universe delivers bigger rats.
That is. It's like, it's kind of like as an engineer, if you make something foolproof, they just make better fools. And, hey, now I know Paul knows what I'm talking about. But anyhow, before I ramble on any further and cost you this, I just want to say thanks, Karen. Your work on our upcoming anthology.
Hold up the book, Karen.
The upcoming one. I don't have a book. That's because it's upcoming.
Oh, here. Hold on.
We do have cover art for it by the amazing Jeff Sturgeon, which I'm very excited about. And we have bookmarks that Bob doesn't know about that I printed up.
Yes, and now we won't know about them at all because
he won't know about them at all.
He's walked away.
Here's coming with something.
That's the cover.
Already framed.
Jeff Sturgeon did this. Let's see if I can get it.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And we're editing away on that one. And then we've got several others we're working on. I mean, you know how cool it is to say that later on tonight I'm going to finish editing Elizabeth Ann Scarborough.
And here's the bookmark that Bob doesn't know about for the book.
Oh, cool. It looks great. It's really good. Make it so, number one.
He already did.
Hey,
if you printed up some, we've been handing them out.
Can't be in charge. Acknowledge that those who are really in charge are acting on your behalf, and thank them. Boy, I've said this is a tough crowd. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you guys. Your next public appearance is going to be Tom and Karen is going to be Miss Con.
Norwest Con. But
Norwest
Gilles
Con.
is going to be the guest of honor at, is it Fanime Con?
Fanime Con. Yeah, I'll be doing a presentation, Tokyo on the Cheap and Easy. I do Tokyo on a budget that most people gasp at because I keep it so low. Typically do 3 weeks for under $3,000, and that includes airfare. And then I'll be doing my Spooky Tokyo presentation on statuary, legends, folklore, lots of locations, some of which I'll show Tom and Karen on the next trip. And because there's a lot of legendaries and little things popping away. I couldn't get to the monument for the Yuki Onna because in the movie Qui-Gon, there's the Snow Woman story based on Lafcadio O'Hearn. Well, that actually has a known location, and there's a monument there. But you have to go way out in western Tokyo, so you're literally on the edge of the mountains. You can start walking uphill into the mountains from that point. So I'll be doing that. And then St. Louis, it's April 9th, St. Louis University. I'm part of a group doing a series of presentations on Japanese games. It's an all-day symposium, and I don't have the information at hand on that, but it's probably somewhere. So that should be fun. It's on the board game I gave Tom and Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that particular board game. And so that'll be a fun thing to do.
Oh, and the author I was talking about, Dennis E. Taylor. Met him at San Jose Worldcon. He was wandering around, a brand new writer, and he's a brilliant writer. And I will just say, if you read something by Dennis Taylor, you will enjoy it, or you can turn in your fan card.
Paul, do you have any presentations coming up?
I do. I'm working to put together the academic track for LACon, the Worldcon in LA. We've got 35 individuals who have already committed to make presentations, and the work that was done at Seattle Worldcon last year and the new work that will be on LACon is going to be published as a volume of articles on it. So if you're interested in presenting a scholarly work at LACon, go to the webpage. The academic track information is there. The information you need to do to be a part of it. And I will be presenting a talk on the tropes and images that were used to convey space travel for the last 100 years and how they borrowed from train and ocean travel. I mean, there's a reason why we call them space ships. And the title of that is How Then Shall We Travel in Space?
Wow. That looks cool.
Yes.
And Tom, you and Karen are going to MISCON, right?
Norwestcon.
No plans for MISCON this year. We've been doing too much traveling. We're about to go on the Joko cruise.
And we're going to be in Turkey, we think, assuming we can fly to Turkey in May.
Yes.
One
of my nephews is getting married there.
Based on the little Nazi shitstorm that we have in the White House and all of his little turds, I wouldn't plan on anything overseas.
Well, the Turkish embassy, the American embassy in Turkey has already cautioned against travel to South Turkey. So we're watching to see if the line creeps up to where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be careful.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Well, that said, guys, I urge you to keep the faith in that your life's going to be better if you work hard at it, because I like to think that it will. And keep writing if you write, keep gaming if you game, keep watching anime if you watch anime, and
keep watching the skies.
Watch the skies, yes. And I am going to grab my puppy, who is napping in preparation, and go up and see if my wife gets to be freed today. Oh yeah, tell us your cat's name very quickly.
Oh, this is somebody who doesn't like to be picked up, but this is Macaulay.
I couldn't tell.
Ah.
I mean, if you had to hold him away, otherwise you'd have had, right in the throat. Yeah. So
Unfortunately,
anyway,
this is the calm one. Say hello.
all righty. And then next week, we're going to have
Cliff Winnig.
Cliff Winnig. And since it's not the day before the show, I have no idea who his guests are. Are you listening, Cliff?
He was
He
here
was
earlier.
there. He's fled.
Oh, that's okay. My great I have been known, if it's the day before the show, to book him a guest, and the fun of who I get to book. And I hope all of you guys out there are doing well, and thank you. And so it's a goodbye time.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.